Well, here we are once again. It's interesting that when we speak of certain topics here on the Huddle, they loop into each other, right? And I'll get into that in a second. But Grand Rising, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Huddle. I am Steele Greye, your host for today, where we speak about things that are good for your health. Think about things that are good for your life in general. And I speak about these topics, and not only does it help me, obviously, but it also reminds us that the same topics and the same bullet points are being spoken about over and over and over and over, right? Compassion, empathy, right? Appreciation, so on and so forth. So today, the topic that I've chosen, are you actively listening to others? I want to be clear when I say actively listening to others does not mean um, listening to others, what they're saying, meaning like opinions or their specific, way that they've done things. No, definitely not talking about that. I'm talking about actually listening, right? Like right now, I'm in an advantageous position because I'm speaking to you and you are listening to me. If you wanted to, you could interrupt me by just taking your finger and pressing the mute button, right? Simple, simple concept. I am in an advantageous position only right now. And I say only right now because you could be doing anything else on top of listening to me and I would not know, correct? Like scrolling online, someone's talking to you, it's muted, so on and so forth. But the concept of actively listening, right? Where you know that you're listening to what someone is saying so deeply that you're actually connecting with them and your mind is uh, as open as it could possibly be. I'll put it to you that way, because we are pretty much always thinking about something else in one way or another, I think. But in this particular conversation, and with the research that I've done on listening or people listening to other people, I say um, three things, right? Are we attentively listening, actively listening? Are we understanding the messages that people are giving to us? And are we um, responding thoughtfully? This would be the definition of actively listening. When I think about the the last one, thoughtfully responding, it makes me think of what happens when you're talking to someone and they say something so crazy and outside the box, and instead of taking a couple of seconds after they talk, you say, "Oh, that's stupid. Oh, nobody would want to do that. Oh, that's hogwash." I love that word. That's hogwash. You say something that shuts them down, right? Right away. You're like, "Oh, that's stupid. Oh, no one wants to talk about that. Let's talk about something else." And as I always say, and I've said this many times on the Huddle, that few moments that we can take where we can change something, or we can um, what's the word I'm looking for? We can give the person a little bit more. Uh, I'm changing this background because it's making me crazy. We can give the person a little bit more openness. We can give the person a little bit more space to live within whatever concept they're bringing to us, right? So, what did I say before? The appreciation, being appreciative, being empathetic, being comprehensive, and being critical, right? Now, when we think about those things, and it seems very simple when I talk about it, like even when I was like, oh, I think I'm going to do this topic, I was like, is this too simple? Like, is this something that everybody knows? And then I realized it's not. It's just not, right? People run into walls with this all of the time. I am a person who presently is singing at multiple senior citizens homes around the tri-state area here in New York. And I can tell you very, very surely that when I'm talking to a woman who's 95 and I'm looking into her eyes or looking into his eyes, the other day I was singing and there was a man who was 102 sitting right in front of me, right? 102. His name was Mr. Padilla. The lady said to me, "We would like to mention uh, Frank, I can't remember his first name, that he's 102 today." And I said, "Sure, let's do it." And after I sang a specific song, I saw him to my right and I said, "This guy's 102?" She said, "Yes." And I was like, wow. And I looked at him and I said, "Let's please give a nice round of applause for Mr. Padilla being 102." And everybody clapped and screamed and it was great and it was awesome. And then when I was finished, I went over to him because I like to talk to them before I leave. And some of them come up to me and they put both of their hands on my hand. Oh my God. Whew, it's so emotional. And I went up to him and I said, "Mr. Padilla, you're 102." And he said, "Sí, es verdad." In Spanish. I spoke to him in English. He spoke to me in Spanish. And I looked at him for a good 20 seconds as I was talking to him. And it was interesting because I could see that he could see that I was connecting with him. And it was such a beautiful moment. And also maybe now I'm becoming better at this because I'm around all of these elderly people and I'm looking at 40 of them at a time. And I'm thinking, how many of these people went through a large portion of their life being unheard, not actually being listened to? I'll have no way of knowing that ever. But when I watch the nurses connect with certain people, I watch if they're actually listening or trying to get to the next person, right? And all respect to nurses, I have quite a few of them in my life. They are the salt of the earth. They are caring for people on a level that we can't even understand. It's a tough job, right? So the listening, right? And inside the listening, I wrote a note. Oh, okay. So there's this thing, and it's called the 3 A's of active listening: attention, attitude, and adjustment. And I thought, wow, attention, attitude, and adjustment. That just makes sense, right? That just completely makes sense. What attention are we giving the person? I just talked about that being focused. The attitude, are we being open and positive in our communication? And lastly, adjustment. How are you adapting and then responding to the other person? Incidentally, so life is so funny. The universe is playing with me right now. As I was speaking in my mind about attention and about listening to somebody actively, one of my great friends just came onto the Zoom, Penelope. And when I'm speaking to Penelope, this is true. I'm not making this up. Penelope does this thing when we're talking where I'll be talking to her, talking, and then it gets really quiet. And I said to her a couple times, when I'm speaking to you, all of a sudden it gets really quiet, like you don't say anything. I realized that you're such a great listener. I realized that you're listening to me. You're not distracted. And in the process of her listening to me, she's actually processing what I'm saying. And then she speaks. So I said that to her. And she said, "Wow, it's been a long time, if ever, that someone has said that, that realized that that's what I'm doing." And I thought, that's awesome. She is processing what I'm saying to her. And for some reason, it's changed the vibration of our calls from my perspective because I feel more, um, what's the word? I feel like I can speak calmer and softer with more of a specific gait because I know she's listening, if that makes sense, right? So, this kind of communication that we have between each other, like I said, building empathy, trust, respect, and diffusing conflict. So if somebody knows that you're listening to them, I believe that they speak and move differently. You know 100% that person that you're talking to, and they're on their phone, and then they're reaching for something, and then they have to go out of the room, and then they're picking up something, and then they turn their back to you because they're washing the dishes, and you're thinking to yourself, "Are you listening to me right now? Because I don't think you're listening to me right now." We've all been in that situation. Matter of fact, I had a dinner the other day, and I was sitting across from someone, and as I was talking to them, their body was moved to the side, and I thought, "Man." And then they were looking away, and they were looking behind, and they were looking up and down, and I was like, "Are you okay?" And they were like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I was like, "I feel like you're here with me right now." They're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm here. I just looking around, looking at da 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 da." And they were anywhere but where I was in that moment. It brings me back to what I said before about how we speak in that moment. So for me, I have to take responsibility for this. I was not as thoughtful and compassionate in that moment, the way it came out of my mouth. I might as well have said, uh, I'm talking here. I'm talking. Are you listening? I might as well have said that. That's what it felt like when it came out of my mouth. And then I realized you weren't compassionate in that moment. What if that person had something going on in their mind that took them so far away in that moment? It's not always about you, Chase. It could not, it could have been other possibilities why they were looking in other directions. I said that to myself internally. I had already said what I said, so it was done. So um, this is uh, this is interesting. I wrote down these 7 techniques, right? To be what's the best way to say it? Basically, when you're listening to somebody, basically, these are 7 things you can do to kind of, I want to say put the person more at ease, but put yourself more at ease, really. It's, first of all, set an intention. Secondly, have a mindful presence. Talked about that. Just be there in that moment. Third, ask questions. Fourth, don't focus on the response. This is a big one because I've said this before on the huddle. When most people are um, talking to someone and they're listening, it is said, I don't know how many studies are done on this, but it is said that most people, when listening, are more so waiting to respond than actually listening deeper. So you're talking to somebody and they're and all of a sudden you hear, "Oh, I want to talk about that. Oh, I want to talk about that. Oh, I want to talk about that." Well, in those moments, it seems that we lose some content because we're already thinking about our response, right? That's a great one. Also, be non-judgmental, which I talked about a second ago. And then lastly, have a great posture, right? Take notes, position your body in front of the person where they know you're listening to them. I've had a lot of experience with this because I've gone to a lot of seminars and been in front of a lot of different people and even musicians, right? Even as a musician, can't lie about this. When I'm on the stage, I can feel which percentage of the room is actually paying attention, actually listening. This is something that's happened over years and years of performing, right? Some people listen so intently and look so close at me in certain moments. I'm like, wow, this song has taken them to somewhere. I just took them somewhere and they're looking at me like, wow, I love this song. Or wow, I haven't heard this in a long time, right? So you have the 3 A's of active listening, but then also I found a concept called the 3 R's of listening. You're going to like this. 3 simple words: repeat, reflect, respond. I'm going to give a shout out to Geo on this one because whenever I listen to Geo, if you ever see this next time when he talks, remember to look for this. More so than not, when Geo is speaking, Geo will almost always, after someone's speaking for an extended period of time or even a short period of time, he will always, almost always say, Yes, I get that. I get that. What I hear you saying is you don't want people to talk about such and such and such and such and such and such. You would rather da 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 da. Yes, I hear that. He almost always repeats what people are saying back to them when the point needs to be sedimented. I love that. I love that about Gio. And if you've heard of landmark education, I know Gio has done it. I've done it. They speak about that a lot. Let the person know that you're listening by repeating the concept that they spoke about, even a little bit, to go back over it again. I thought that was brilliant. I don't do that as much, but I do it a lot of times. That's just a little tip that you can use in, in the way you want to use it. Just that little repeating of things. So as we talk about active listening, I want to hear from you a little earlier today than normal because there's so much information, but yet this is a very simple concept. Today's Zoom to me is almost just like a reminder because I know we all know this, but we get overzealous in our speech so much that we get so excited. I did it a couple days ago. Someone was talking to me about 3 or 4 things, a musician friend of mine. I wanted to say so much, and then I just retreated. I just let it be for a moment. And he said, which was interesting at the end of the conversation, not the end, but the moment when it got quiet, I said a lot, didn't I? I was like, yes, you did. He was like, man, I feel like I'm the only one talking. What do you think? And then I spoke, right? So there's this like balance, like this seesaw that we uh, have to kind of learn with each person. I think that's why this concept is so crucial and has to be repeated over and over because how you speak to me is not how you speak to your mom, it's not how you speak to your boss, it's not how you speak to your dog. You follow me? So that is a concept that we just have to. Oh, there he is, Giovanni. Speaking of Giovanni, he comes right in the Zoom after I speak about him. You missed it. I just gave you your flowers. Um, I was speaking to everyone about how, as a communicator, you do this great thing where when someone's speaking, you say, I hear you. I get that. I think you're saying this. You're saying that, da, 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 da. This concept of repeating the information that someone gave to you so that you let them know you are coherently listening to them. You understand it. You respect their position. And then you go into yours. So thank you for doing that. That's a great example of, and we were talking about Landmark because Landmark is one of the places that does that so much, that Landmark conversation, right? So this is how we communicate, right? And as we listen, listen, listen. As a matter of fact, I forget who wrote the book, but there's actually a book called The Art of Listening. I implore all of you to go and read that book, The Art of Listening. Man, I wish I knew the author. Let me see if I can check it out quick. But anyway, I would love to hear what anyone else has to say about listening, how it affects you, and if you want to chime in and say something about that concept, because I love talking with people about this. The art of listening. Anyone have anything to say at all?
Grand Rising.
Eric from, how are you?
This is Ingrid.
Hi, Ingrid.
Hi. So I get all what you're saying, and in regards to how you're saying like what Giovanni does, it's called like summarizing. It's like either you're summarizing, you're reflecting, or you're mirroring what they said. And that shows the person that you're actually listening because you're actually repeating back to them what they said and
Right.
also giving them a chance to hear it coming from somebody else.
Correct.
Because sometimes when you say things, you don't really hear yourself.
Right.
And the quiet space, I get that with my mother all the time. I'm talking to her, she's speaking to me on the phone, and I'm totally quiet, holding space, being quiet, listening. Right. And she'd be like, "You're there? You're there?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm listening." you know? So that quiet space gives the people a chance to say what they have to say, even if they go on for a while, like your friend did. And then for you to reflect back, absorb, and respond. Because right. They do say half the time we're just getting our answers read up to go back, and especially if it's like if you're not on the same page. So we do have to be open to hear what others are saying. We may not necessarily agree, but to hear them, give them space, give them time to share their thoughts. And then if we actually listen the way we should, we could have a conversation rather than a combat or
Right.
going back and forth. So yeah.
Correct. Correct. Thank you, Ingrid. I appreciate you. And you are absolutely, I agree with you 100%. Thank you. Um, Something came up in my mind as you were speaking too. I was like, yes, I totally understand what you're saying. There's this thing that happens, and I think you guys can definitely agree with me. When you're talking with somebody on the phone, it's usually certain people, I have to say, it's not anybody, but certain people, and you're talking and you hear like, hey, how you doing? Oh, let me get two of those. Hey, how are you? And after a while, you're like, am I still on the phone with this person? Like literally, you hear them go to another place, like they're ordering food. Yeah, let me get two burgers and a fry. And let me get. Hold on one second. I'll be right back to you. Let me get. Oh, hold on a second. I got another call. You're just waiting there. Then they come back. Hey, how you doing? Sorry, I'm just. There's so much stuff going on. But let me get in my car. In the news today, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to call you back. Does that ever happen to anybody? Oh my gosh. It can give you like this temporary anxiety because you called to speak to that person. Granted, you called them while they're in their life. They're moving around, they're trying to talk to you. But I think it happens with certain people more than others. I don't know how you guys feel about that. It's like we have those people in our lives that you just want to have a conversation with them. You just want them to listen. And for some reason, you can't get it. Now, if anybody who calls me, I'm just going to be very transparent. I'm in New York City. If you call me and I'm walking around the city and you hear boop, 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 woo, 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 hey, that's the big town. That's what we do. Can't get quiet in the street, right? But in general, the concepts that I talked about before, where you're actively listening, I've done things like go into a quiet area when I want to talk to somebody, so on and so forth, just so that the person knows I'm trying to listen to them. I'm trying to listen to them. And it works 80% of the time, I think. And I've been guilty of what I was talking about a second ago. And as soon as I realize I'm doing it, I go, let me call you back later, or let me move to a quieter place, or so on and so forth. Because the main point is these conversations are important. We don't know when someone's not going to be in our life anymore. We don't know when someone's not going to be able to speak to us. We don't know if something's going to happen and that's it. That's the end of our relationship, right? And just recently, I lost a great friend of mine, not to death, but by choice. And in that interaction, when I received a text from this person, I was listening without actually hearing their voice, right? Through the words. And I got a text from this person. And as I was actively reading it and hearing their voice and everything, I thought to myself, I hear you. I love you. Peace. Have a great life. Again, looking at the words, listening to the emotion, because I know this person, we can do ourselves a really, really big service by listening more intently. I actually think we will get more information and we will be calmer if we listen better because we won't have that, what's the word I'm looking for? That lizard brain that says, oh, I gotta fight back. Oh, I gotta fight back. Oh, I gotta talk. Oh, I gotta say this right away. Wait a second, I gotta talk. The Huddle is such a great playground for that because we watch people interact all the time, right? All the time. I specifically love listening to Gio and Sorrel, two different methods of speaking as they coagulate and they pull back and forth. But if you notice, as Gio and Sorrel are speaking, they listen intently to each other every time. But when both of them get excited, it's the best. I love it. And Sorrel's like, Gio, I'm gonna let you finish that. Gio's, I gotta get this point out. And they go back and forth, but it's all love. That's my point. Let the other person know that you are here. You respect what they're saying. You do understand where they're coming from, even if it excites you so much that you have to talk right away, right? I believe this is such a perfect practice ground for that because that's what we do here, right? We exchange concepts, and when someone else is speaking, then we're listening. We're just listening, just for that moment. Anyone else have anything before?
Grand Rising.
Rashida.
Grand Rising, everyone. Thank you so much, my brother Chase, for the topic that people not being mindful of the topic. And one of the things that I can testify of is that sometimes people will speaking to me and they say, "Are you listening?" And I say, "Yes." He says, "But you're not looking at me." I say, "I'm listening."
Mm,
And they
that's
say,
true.
"Oh, what did I say?" So when I can repeat it word by word, looking in their face, repeating word by word, they'll be like, "Damn, did I say all that?" Says I am a good listener. And this is one thing that I have learned from little girl, that being a good listener, you hear more than what you should hear, but you can really digest and really know. A matter of fact, if you listen good, you can read that person right after it's
Right,
oh, that's the intention,
right,
even though even though they're not telling it to you by words, but if you listen carefully, you pick up all that vibration that they have to share with you, and it's up to you what you want to do with the message that they taking across and the one that you listen. That is so important, that listening and mindfulness. Have I know that when I call you and you don't have the time, you said, "Rashida, sis, I gotta call you
it's
back."
true. Yeah, it's true.
And that is something that, and you would call me and say, "Chase, I'm jumping in my car and we're gonna have a lot of background noise. I'm gonna have to speak to you later on." So that is respect to the other person who is on the other side of the line. So thank you so much for that topic. Really, really tedious, but if people would listen, it make a big difference to people's life. Thank you very much, Jace.
Excellent. My sister Rashida. Love you like cook food in the summertime. Giovanni Gonzalez.
Okay, great. Oh, thank you. I know time is running out. I love this topic. And what I was going to say is that one of the aspects in which I have to say that Sorel has trained me a lot, I often refer Sorel as a mentor, is that listening and having the other person have the experience of being heard are two different things.
True.
And what I have found is that the more work I do to have the person feel the experience of being heard is what keeps me out of trouble. And because at the end of the day, it is the person's experience, their experience, that validates the opportunity of the conversation.
Mm.
And so anyway, I wanted to add that to the mix of the conversation, and thank you for including me, and thank you for acknowledging me. I appreciate that you do that. Thank you for creating me that way.
Not a problem. I pay attention to every person on these calls. It's such a beautiful kaleidoscope of personalities and thought processes and vocal delivery. I'm fascinated by it. I just think it's amazing. Thanks, brother. Ingrid, come on in.
Hi, I just wanted to say again, as the topic is active listening,
Right.
one of the qualities of active listening is eye contact.
I was going to say that.
Looking into the person and that is part of letting them know that you are present. That is showing presence, and also providing that quiet space. Like when you say you're in the streets of New York City, let me call you back when I'm in other place where it's more quieter. That is also part of active listening, because there's no outward distractions.
Right.
And so giving them that quiet space, the eye contact. And when you give that eye contact, and as Gio just said, giving them the time to speak, because now it's all about them, the person that's speaking, right? It's all about them. They're getting sending the message out to you. Sometimes you get to also hear what is not being said, because you are so present. And when you have that eye contact, you can feel, okay, they're beating around the bush with something. They're trying to tell me something, but they really don't know how to say it. So not only do you hear what's said when you're actively listening, but you also hear what's not being said. And hearing and listening are two different things. And I tell people that all the time. I say, are you listening? Well, you're just hearing me. It's a difference. You know what? I'll talk to you later. Many of times I've had to cut conversations because I know I was not being heard. They were not listening. I did not have their attention.
Correct.
That's my piece.
Thank you so much. I love this topic. I love it. As you were talking about the eye contact thing, I was thinking about the handful of times I got in trouble when I was a young boy because my mother did not play with me and my bonus father did not play. So I only got in trouble like this many times through my whole childhood. I was clear. I remember my mother used to say, come here, look at me, because I was mad at her. So I would be looking away and she would say, look at me. And I was like, why does she want me to look at her? Man, I'm in trouble. I don't want to look at her. And she would always say that, look at me. Okay, do you hear me? And I'm like, yes, I hear you, Mom. I hear you. I'm sorry. Or whatever I said in the moment. So thank you so much for what you said, Ingrid. Thank you all for being here today. We could go to 10 o'clock on this topic. I know we could. But the time has taken its way with us once again. So if you were here today and you are still within the sound of my voice and you are still listening, thank you so much for being here. And we always end with our tenets. First of all, to love. Please love more. We need so much love right now in the world, people. I can't even express that enough, right? I want you to laugh as much as you possibly can. I want you to move the body each and every day. I want you to sleep more than you slept the night before. We can only take it day by day. That's all we can do, right? I want you to eat mostly plant-based because eating mostly plant-based keeps the body a little more fluid, a little more regular, a little less having to deal with the digestion that stops us and makes us go slower, right? And please, please challenge all of your assumptions. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. It will do you no harm. Have a spectacular day, everyone, on purpose. And I love you guys. You guys are the best. I appreciate you so much. Be well.